Thanks for tuning in to Written on the Edge, Season 7, Episode 30. I'm Vance Bastian here with my co-host, S.A. Baz Collins.
Howdy.
And we're really glad you're here with us. On today's show, J.P. Jackson joins us to discuss his many recent releases. Busy man there. We'll follow that with our review of Dance of the 41, and then Baz and I will share what's held our attention this week. If you like hearing updates about queer content creators, support us on Patreon, hit our merch store, do something like a YouTube video. Just keep us on the air. But now, on to our guest. J.P. Jackson is an award-winning author of dark urban fantasy, paranormal, and paranormal romance stories that feature LGBTQ+ main characters. He works as an IT analyst in healthcare during the day, and lives with his husband of 24 years and his two Chihuahuas, Canela and Jalisco. His other hobbies include hybridizing African violets, thanks to his grandma, extensive traveling, and, believe it or not, knitting. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Our pleasure. All right, so we've got a lot to discuss, but in case a listener hasn't heard your previous interviews, just give us a quick how you became a writer, because I love the moment where you come up out of the basement.
Okay, let's try and make a long story very short. Yeah, I've read my entire life and always liked horror fantasy and then urban fantasy. But every time I sat down and read a book, I never saw guys like me or folks within my community as the lead characters. Always a sidekick, oftentimes not very good representation. So I, at the ripe old age of 40 something, decided that I could do this. I could write a book. Didn't have a hot clue what I was doing. So in secret, down in the basement, in the darkness of the later hours of the night, banged out something, and it took me forever. Like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. And then when I finally finished, I climbed out of the basement and I looked at my husband. I said, I think I just wrote a book. And of course he just looked at me and went, yeah, of course you did. So that's kind of how it started.
Was it a coloring book?
Oh,
was it a coloring book? No, it was like a really dark version of, oh no, goodness, no. Think of it as gay supernatural.
Okay.
very awesome.
Not that that wasn't gay enough as on its own, but
And now only a short time later.
Well.
And now only a short time later, we are here to discuss your recent releases.
There might be a few.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
So last November, I signed 5 publishing contracts. I will never, ever do that in 1 month ever again. Oh my God.
So I'll try.
It's been a very busy winter of editing.
Well, yeah. So I'll make sure I get these in chronological order, but correct me if I'm wrong. February was Attended Garden. Tell us about that one.
Sure. Attended Garden was one of a couple short stories that I had put together for an anthology. One of my publishing houses, 9 Star Press, had put out a call for, and so it was part of that originally, and then over the course of time, various authors had pulled back their stories, so the anthology kind of dissipated and dissolved. So I had these short stories out there, and I thought, I really want them out there so people can read them. And so I convinced my publisher to publish the short story on its own. And so you can get it for like 99 cents.
Nice.
I know. And it's FF paranormal romance about a witch and a dryad and a traditional generational spell gone horribly wrong.
Awesome.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. So then March was Hood's Ride is Red.
Yes.
Look at that smile.
I know. I think it's probably still one of my favorite stories. I mean, even though it's a short story, it's a queer retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, but with an all-male cast and werewolves. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. That was followed in May by Cursed, which is the second book in a series, but a full novel.
Yes. Yeah. Cursed is the second novel of the Magus Malefica series. And it's the continuation of the story of my witch boys. There's one more novel to come, maybe more. We'll see what
Woohoo.
happens. But in this story, so the first novel centers around Dev and Cam, his best friend, and Dev's absolute longing to become part of the supernatural world. In this book, we call it the Shadow Realm. And he gets his wish after they perform a ritual, and he kind of forces his best friend into it. His best friend also ends up just on the short end of the magical stick. And for Cam, has a lot of bad things happen to him. And so this book picks up with Cam and the consequences from his rather flippant wishes that he made, but also continues on with Dev and his boyfriend that he gets along the way, Tully, and the third that they get, Sparks.
Ooh.
So it's a little polyamorous throuple plus mutant werewolf gone mad chaotic magic fae nightmare.
So a little bit of everything, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, basically.
Nice. And that brings us to this summer's release, Devil's Due. Oh, look at that. Another big smile.
I'm really bad. I have a hard time concentrating on a particular series and just writing it and finishing it. And I know there are readers out there right now that would like to throw rocks at my head for doing that. I promise you I will finish all the series I've got going. I promise you I will. But this story has been kind of percolating around in my head, and after I finish a book, I kind of have to take a bit of a breather from that story and kind of let it sit and ruminate in the back of my head and figure out where that story's going to go. So there's a lot of subconscious effort going on. But in the meantime, all these other stories are right here and they need to get banged out. So I wrote Devil's Due, and it's, again, very, very much like a gay supernatural kind of thing, but this is all about contract demons. And so the main character is Dominic Romanov. And if you do a little demonology hunting on the internet, Romanov is an actual demon from hell who collects souls. Made sense that I make him into a contract demon.
Right.
Anyways, Dominic finds himself in possession of a human who kind of piques his interest, who doesn't kind of react to him like most humans would react to a demon. And so he finds out that this person has a hidden identity.
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
All the other supernatural creatures in the city want to get their claws into this person. Yeah, it's fun. So this is a novella. It'll be a kind of a serial novella that I'll release every so often, about 5 to 7 parts to that. So yeah, another series.
And that was with Rebel Satori.
It was a brand new publishing house that I'm working with, and so I'm grateful for them to pick up my story and run with it.
Nice. Is there anything you want to mention about any one of those? Oh, go ahead, Baz.
No, I was just going to say, and for those people who have watched our series or are starting to watch our YouTubes, we do have an episode with Sven from Rebel Satori. So check that episode out.
Absolutely. Anything I want to say about any of them? So some of my stuff contains some spicy scenes. Some of my stuff does not. So if you like your paranormal romance with a little blood and gore and some horror elements, I'm your guy.
Because why not?
Because, they go hand in hand.
Well, they do. Especially if you're going to play with creatures from horror. There has to be a little horror.
There's got to be some monster fucking.
Right.
And some of that too. All right.
I know.
Baz, do you want to ask Jeff our get to know you questions for this year?
Absolutely.
So, what have you got coming up next?
Oh, well, I have the next installment of Devil's Due, which is 3/4 written, and it's called Better the Devil You Know. We also have the third in the Magus Malefica series called Possessed. Which all I'll say about it is this: it goes darker than it has already been. We're going to incorporate the undead demons, that kind of thing, and it takes the series from a closed fantasy to an open urban fantasy. So a society where we keep the magic hidden to a world where, oh my God, everybody knows there's magic.
Terrifying.
Or how much fun can you have with that? Could be a lot of dead muggles, let me tell you. And then I also am trying really hard to wrap up Blood and Sacrifice, which I know I've talked about for years, but it's almost there, and that's the second of the Inner Demons series, which if you look at my stuff, the second novel I ever published was called Magic or Die, and this is the second book to that. So we've got things on go. Oh, and then I have to do this whole Justin thing with the Unseelie Court.
I'm looking forward to it. So, where should people go to follow you? What's the best social?
Oh, probably Facebook. There are pros and cons to that. I have my own page, my author page, JP Jackson. I also have an author group now. Funny, there's actually 125 people in it. I don't know how that happened. So it's called The Demon Horde. Fans.
If it's a fun horror.
Yeah, horror. Yeah, anyways, look for The Demon Horde, and it'll be like fans of JP Jackson's books or something foolish like that. Anyways, I don't know how I ended up to be so lucky, but I've got 3 fantastic ladies, Danielle, JJ, and Sam, who just take it and run with it, and they help me with it. And I don't know what I did to deserve them, but they are in my world and they are making it a go.
That's fantastic. All right. Any final words of wisdom?
Go play in the shadows.
Nice. All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to JP Jackson for being with us. Jeff, thank you so much. And thank you for jumping in last minute on your vacation in the mountains.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Or she's out being the Martha Stewart of the tundra.
I thought you were looking for
werewolves. We had wine and charcuterie last night.
See, okay, but there you go.
Oh, see, I thought you were looking for werewolves. My mistake.
Oh, well, there's one over there.
Nice.
Easy to find.
He'll be by later.
He'll be by later.
Air wine coolers is on the menu, so
We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators, old and new, friends, and new discoveries. So if you enjoy learning about these artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Stay tuned for our review of Dance of the 41.
Hey, gals, gays, and days. Welcome back to our review section. And today, in this segment, we are reviewing Dance of the 41, which is a historical retelling with tons of artistic license that we'll get to that in just a second. But it is the story at the end of the 19th century. Ignacio de la Torre married the daughter of President of Mexico, Porfirio Diaz, Ignacio leads a double life. He rises in the traditional world of politics while being a member of a clandestine and gay society.
Should probably say that's, I'm assuming, the IMDb write-up. Porfirio is the president, not the daughter. The daughter's Amada.
Yeah, the daughter's Amado. I said daughter of the president of Mexico. So, anyways, it is a true story. The story does exist. It is part of it, but man, did this writer go off the rails historically. She turned it into this women's oriented agency story that really wouldn't have existed in Mexico of the time. Women did not have a lot of power in that era. The original story takes place in November 17th and 18th. It's that evening in 1901. Now, interestingly enough, there, as a bit of context, there was another scandal, same-sex scandal, that happened 1 month later with a bunch of lesbians, but that never made the popular scandal that the men did. So that's the context of what happened historically. And just for a little bit of a rundown, one of the things about this story and the reason why and this is what is written about the film. It says the feature film Dance of the 41 is a fictionalized retelling of events surrounding the dance, focusing on Ignacio de la Torre. Since there's little historical evidence, and that's key, since there is little historical evidence, including the attendance, the film takes significant artistic license. It premieres in November of 2020, and the movie was directed by David Pablos, written by Monica Revilla, who I have a real bone to pick with you, girl, produced by Pablo Cruz, and stars Alfonso Herrera as Ignacio de la Torre. And if you don't know who Alfonso is, or if you don't recognize the name, you may recognize him from playing Nando in Sense8. He's one half of the most brilliant Latino gay couple ever put to film. And he also was in the reboot of the Exorcist series, playing the father who was the central figure in season 1 of the Exorcist series, which is now no longer. But great actor. I love his work, and it took me a while to realize that was him when I was watching it. I didn't see his name go by. I was doing something while the credits were running. But it is Alfonso, and he is a fabulous actor who has no problem playing gay and will go the distance, whatever it takes, to tell our stories. So he's one of the few allies that really, really delves into the character wholeheartedly. So for that, I do give it many credit. So what did you think about it now with all that context?
I watched it before I went and read the history of the actual event. So doing it in that order, not knowing the history, it was an engaging story. But I walked away, and unfortunately, I'm a product of today's news media. I walked away saying, that's how lives are ruined when the religion controls the government.
Here's my initial take to the ending of the story. I don't really have a whole lot of problem with the progression of the story for the first 2/3, other than Amada has way too much agency. Way. I mean, like, she is a modern woman stuck at the early parts of the 1900s in Mexico. And that would not have happened, even with her father being the president. Just culturally, it would not have been that easy for her to pull it up, because I was watching it and I'm like going, wait a minute, all he has to do with her fainting spells and her anxiety, he could book her into it. And he does say it at one point, I could just throw you in an asylum, and he would have the power to do that, and there wouldn't be anything she could really do. And
the only two things she ever did that showed power, though, was one, hold his secret over his head, and two, run to daddy.
Yes,
that's all she ever did.
But no, well, that, and she threatened him with a gun. I mean, so, I mean, my point is they gave her way too much agency. In the culture, that would not happen. Even her going to her father would have been a really touchy situation, because men are still held in much higher regard. I don't know that she would have done that. What was more believable in the story was when she's sitting there with all the other ladies, and they're all talking about, oh, well, that's how it goes in marriage. He warms under your gaze in the beginning of the relationship, and then he finds another place to go warm himself. So the women all have that kind of community where they know what their husbands are doing. They're not stupid. And that's their agency, is their network within themselves. What this movie gets wrong from my perspective culturally, and it just shows that she's a modern woman writing a queer tale. I think if a man, and I'm not being sexist about this, but I think if a gay man had written the story, it would have been vastly different. And I'm not knocking women writing our stories. I'm just saying you need to look at it from a sexual point of view, because in the genders and sexes, it matters in Latino culture. It matters greatly in Latino culture.
Did the movie allude to the fact that that Amada was born out of wedlock, that she was a bastard child?
She was
Because I know
mestizo.
because I know historically she was, but I don't remember if the movie mentioned it.
Yeah, it did, because at one point he asks her when she has her first anxiety fainting spell, he
Okay.
says, how long has it been since you've seen her? Implying her mother, who
Got
is
it.
indigenous. So that is the fit where they wrap it around her that she is mestizo. So
Got it. Okay.
anyways, and then the ending with the whole thing about, she gets her little revenge by saying that Eva died at the end, which I know I'm spoiling the end, but trust me, you're going to get to it and go, huh? It was way over the top. It was soap opera, and it just evolved into this morass of what the fuckery is going on for me. It was just, I thought and then the whole thing where they parade all of the men who were arrested through the crowds, and people were throwing them and kicking them and beating them. That shit didn't happen. It did not happen. They didn't even know who the people really were. The only names that came out of the whole thing was during a court proceeding where some of the men objected to their punishment of being sent to the military. And those are the only names in history that were recorded. Even Ignacio was only speculated.
And that's only like 5 names that actually were recorded?
Yeah.
5 or 7 or something like that? It was a really small number.
A really small number. And only less than half of them, 19 of the men, were conscripted into doing government work far away from, So the whole story of the gay man loses in the end, and it's just absolute bullshit. It's just bullshit. Now, that aside, the production was brilliant. The cinematography is gorgeous. The acting that's there is brilliantly done. The men go the distance. They lean into their roles wholeheartedly. So from that queer aspect, definitely on brand, and did a really good job. And I think I credit the director for doing that. I will take points away from him in my rating because he went with a script that was just over the top Mexican melodrama that just really did not belong in the film. It had no purpose other than to make women who watch this feel good that she got something in the end. I don't know that happened in real life, and I'd be willing to bet it didn't. So, just culturally speaking, especially in the 1900s. That's my quick take, and unless you've got something else to contribute, let's get to our ratings.
I fully bow to your knowledge of the culture 100%, because all I know is what I saw on the screen, to be perfectly honest. And then what I later read on Wikipedia. So, I gave production quality a 4. Like you said, it was beautiful. It was absolutely a gorgeous thing to watch. It didn't knock my socks off, but I certainly am not detracting for anything. Script, screenplay, like you, I gave it a 3. I felt it was overly dramatic, even for a drama. Sound lighting score, 3.5. I thought it was good. Again, it sort of didn't really get in the way of anything, but it didn't really blow me away. Art direction, costuming, I'm starting to bring my scores back up. That got a 4. I thought the costuming specifically was beautiful. Casting a 5. Like you said, this cast, everybody just bit into their roles and did exactly what was asked of them. Directing 4. Like you, I thought the director handled the storytelling side of it beautifully. I wish he had had more say in the script. Queer themes presented, 4. It's definitely a historic drama and not necessarily relevant to our society, though we are devolving, so who knows. So my personal overall rating...
We may get back there.
My personal overall rating was a 4.
And I just want to make it clear, I'm not knocking female writers who write queer stories, nor am I knocking them from directing or producing them. What I'm saying is you cannot write a modern perspective in a character for a time period where it was clearly not the norm. That was really a stretch, and her being mestizo puts her even further down than those women who would have been perceived more Spanish than indigenous. So
what are your ratings?
My personal or my production overall is a 5. I did love the look of the film. I loved that it was made. To be honest, I'm glad the film is out there, but it's just a bittersweet kind of accomplishment. Screenplay, I give it a 1. I am really down on the screenplay. I just was so over melodramatic and just unnecessary in so many ways. Sound lighting score, I'm going to bring that back up to a 5. I really did like the way it was done. I love the production values. Artistic direction, I give it a 5. The sets, the sequences within the buildings, just gorgeous. The cast, 5. I think they were brilliant. They were lovely. The director, I'm going to take it down to a 3 because I think a director does have the ability to push back or have a discussion with the producers about some of it. And I think some of the modern sensibility just made this film go in the wrong direction. It was not fully representational of what the times would have been. This is a historical movie through a modern lens, and it just doesn't work. Queer themes, I'm going to say a 4.5, only because it needed to be made. These stories need to be told, but I wish it was done a lot more accurately. I put this on. Here's another queer film, The Imitation Game, which is the story of Alan Turing. While there were some historical inaccuracies a bit in that story and some artistic license taken, they really honed the direction of where the story went in history. So that is how it should be done. It is done in the context. And even then, Keira Knightley's character of Jane, she has agency, but it's muted to the time that she's in. So they did it correctly. Here in this one, yeah, you can have a wild woman who decides to go off the rails, but it's only going to land her in the asylum. And I just didn't buy how it played out for Amada. I think it did the actress a great discredit. So that's my thing. I'll say, I think it's an important film, but I think it's done poorly. So my overall is a 3.75.
Understood. What are you watching this week?
So, I made the mistake.
Oh no.
Of watching. I watch the Young Turks every now and then on YouTube. It's not a far stretch to say that I was on YouTube. And
you?
Yeah, I know. Me? Who would have thought? No. I watched a YouTube on the Young Turks. It was actually the Damage Report with Johnny Orgarola, who I really like. I really like him as a host and a content creator. But he did this whole thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene going off the rails on her podcast. And for those listening, I just did air quotes with that pause that you heard there. Where she talked about how global warming is actually a good thing for all of us. And then she went into a tirade about how gay men are giving our children monkeypox. And the level of stupidity just calls out that, you know what? I'm sorry, but there should be a bar of intelligence that's required for lawmakers and for judges to participate in the public sector. There needs to be an intelligent, they have to take a SAT test or an IQ test or something to show that these people are not fucking idiots, because our country is literally at stake here. So yeah, I'm a bit angry. So it put me in a really bad mood. But I will say the one thing I did see that was fabulous was I did see a professional a cappella classically trained singer do a dissection and an analysis of Dimash Kudaibergen, who is a fabulous opera singer. He sings opera and a classic mix of opera and pop music and stuff from Kazakhstan. And he did a really, really thoughtful analysis. The only thing that kind of pissed me off is that he was stopping the song so many times to have his analysis. It would have been better served if he had watched the whole thing, give his emotional reaction, and then done the analysis after going back over the song. But that was the only thing that took me away from it. But I liked hearing a well-trained actor, or a well-trained singer, talk about the craft from somebody who is immensely talented and has a dynamic range of like 6.5 octaves, and really diving into how Dimash produces that sound. And I thought it was really, really well done. So on one end, I had rampant blonde head bimbo stupidity. On the other hand, I had a guy who really knew his shit about music, and it was very comforting to watch someone who really knew what they were talking about. And it gave me hope and because he was young, and I'm like, oh God, there are some of them out there that know of what they speak. So that's my what am I on about this week?
Let's see. I watched The Lake on Amazon Prime, and I want to have us review it next week, so I don't want to spoil too much, but 8 half-hour episodes was worth it. It was surprisingly heartwarming.
I have one that's like that too, called Big Boys, that we're going to talk about.
Nice. So. And Shark Week started. I'm so happy. I don't know why. I love Shark Week. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's what I need to get away from the realities of our political world, is to watch sharks in their natural habitat.
Sharks eating people.
I have yet to see someone get eaten this year on Shark. Now, I've seen replays of last year, but whatever.
Need I say more? Yeah,
Right.
This boy who watched Jaws at the age of 9 and had a waterbed at home, I don't do sharks. And I hear they like Mexican food, so it's definitely not on the menu for me. But I'm glad you loved it.
Fun fact, I was in a car accident when I was a teenager. A deer leapt the hood of my dad's 2-day-old car when I was 16 years old and just learning to drive on the main street of my hometown. So pulled into the Hardee's parking lot, and the officer came to take the statement, and he asked if I wanted to keep the carcass, which I did not. And then my grandmother showed up and immediately fell apart, screaming, wondering if I was okay, because I was wearing a novelty t-shirt that said Wisconsin Shark Hunting Society and had a big fake bite out of the side. So there I am at the site of a car crash with what looks like a bloody t-shirt, and my poor, poor grandmother pulls up and sees this. I have loved sharks ever since, and I don't know why.
Well, to each their own. That's all I'll say. To each their own.
Can I do my one of the week first?
Sure.
I actually have one tiny little sliver of hope from our government. On Tuesday, the House of Representatives passed a bill that would recognize same-sex marriages at the federal level.
Yes. Yes.
The Senate then proceeded to say that they didn't have time. Bastards, all of them. But the House passed it. Thank you for realizing that there are more important issues than what consenting adult loves what consenting adult. Thank you.
Yes. My who won the week are all of those people. Tammy, I can't think of her name now. She's a representative. Not Tammy Duckworth. That's the other Tammy. I can't think of her name. And I'll put it up here so you can see who it is. She cornered Marco Rubio in an elevator about his take on gay marriage, and it did not go well for him. I also saw Pete Buttigieg go out and start. So they won my week because we're having people push back on this stupidity of opening up the 1950 and 1960 playbook for conservatives trying to bash the queer community. And we have people who are are our allies and who are from our community standing up and saying what stupid fucking nonsense this bullshit is.
Awesome. All right, Baz, any final words of wisdom?
Oh no, are you kidding? The bitch is tired. The bitch is tired. She has no wisdom left. I have to look on my Feedly to find some wisdom. Or I ask my husband. That's the other one.
There you go. There's the wisdom. When in doubt, ask your loved ones.
There you go. There you go.
All right, folks. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists or artists that you've met before but are interested in their new works, please like and subscribe so you can get the alerts for these new episodes. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.